All right, welcome back. As we've just completed talking about the resources for vCenter's memory, network, and database, one we haven't talked about is disk. And the vCenter server appliance has a lot of disks. It actually has 16 virtual disks in vSphere 7. But that's because of interesting new features that have been added. It was 13 in vSphere 6.7. There's a couple more new virtual disks. So as you can see here, we actually just walked through some of the different virtual disks. We don't need to go through all of them, but just to be mindful, the first virtual disk, VMDK1, has the boot OS, right? The Linux OS. You got your temp and the swap and the core for whenever the vCenter server dumps core. You got a core dump partition. But then there's the database. The database lives in 3 virtual disks. There's the storage DB. That's the Postgres database of the inventory. Then there's also storage DB log, the Postgres database logging location, and then the storage seat, which is basically the database table that holds the stats, events, alerts, and tasks, right? The seat table, as it's known as. So those 3 virtual disks, if there was ever a reason to split out your virtual disks, normally when a VM has multiple virtual disks, they all go in the same data store. I mean, this VM has 16 virtual disks. Are they all going in the same data store? Yeah, probably. But if you were to, think about what kinds of storage should all these virtual disks actually be placed in, most of them can go in traditional storage locations. But those 3 database ones, the DB log, and the seat, they would conceivably be best served by being placed on high-speed storage. The rest, the other 13, could go in more traditional storage. All right, notice there's a bunch that are there for auto-deploy. Right, NetDump, auto-deploy, image builder. Those are all related to auto-deploy. And so they may not even be used if you're not using auto-deploy. Update manager is the repository of all the different patches and images. And then we have an archive. There's the VTSDB. That's the trust services, or I should say the vSphere trust services database. And the VTPSD log that holds the logs of all those trust services, right? This is the whole vSphere trust authority maintains its information in these partitions, and then a dedicated partition, the workload control plane service stage directory for the binaries of install, update, and upgrade, which is what this new lifecycle manager will actually be leveraging. Right, patches still go in the update manager partition, so they all have good use cases and so on. But the 3 new ones, the VTSDB and VTSDB log, are about the vSphere trust authority. And the lifecycle is for this new lifecycle manager that is now available in vSphere 7. Of course, we can see all those virtual disks in the VAMI, right? In the VAMI, you click on monitor, click on disks, and you can see the status of each of the different disks. What you want to watch out for are those database ones. They can't be filling up, because if the database fills up, vCenter service shuts down. You get warnings. If it's 80% full, you're going to get a warning. If it's 95%, it doesn't even wait till it's full. When it's 95%, that's when it's going critical, and it will actually shut down your vCenter system. So you do need to watch over the status of each of these different partitions, but most importantly, the database partitions. Both the DB and the seat, they can't be 100% full. Now, there are some command line ways of viewing this information as well, right? From the Linux command line on your vCenter server, you can run the df-k command. I like df-h. If you run df-h, it'll show you the different virtual disks and their size, right? And their use percentage, all in a good human readable format. That's the H option. And of course, here they show you the way in which they've been mounted, which maps back to their names back in my table here, right? That's how you can map them to the appropriate virtual disks, right? But they do get mapped in here and showing you actually the true mount point over here on the left. There's also, right, but this just shows you the utilization, not any actual disk IO activity, right? That's actually the nice thing about the VAMIs. It actually shows you everything, show you the disk activity and the utilization. Here we're showing you the utilization in one command, df-h, and in another command, or I should say from vimtop, you can monitor the disk IO activity. The problem I have with this one is that they only show you by some disk identifier here. And the funny thing is that they actually start the first disk with DM-0. And if you noticed, the actual first virtual disk is actually virtual disk number, well, it didn't get captured there, is disk number 1. So disk number 1 here is the same as DM0 over here. But in any case, what can you check out here? You can look at the number of I/O operations as well as the other basic disk statistics, but it's not giving you utilization. It's not going to tell you how full the disks are here. And by the way, to see the disks view, you have to hit the letter K to show disks, right? So processes is the letter R, and disks is the letter K, and then networks, the letter O for networks. And back to VAMI, you can see the database actual table sizes by clicking on the database tab, and here you can see the status of the seat table and the overall inventory. Full database statistics are listed here. Of course, this is probably from our lab environment, which is really, really small, because those are pretty flat line examples, aren't they? But important to be able to monitor this. You also get alerts, right? The system will alert you when those database files are growing past 85%. So what do you think? Which is more critical? Host-to-host network bandwidth? Is that more critical than vCenter server-to-host bandwidth? Well, actually, we had a slide on that. Host-to-host means vCenter to vCenter, and that is true. vCenter to vCenter is more critical than vCenter to host. Which of the following tools can you use to monitor free space in the vCenter server database, right? Free space. Again, that's not every tool out there, right? Does DF show free space? Yeah, it does. vimtop, no, that only shows you activity. Cloud VM RAM size has nothing to do with disks. And the VAMI will also show you the disk, free disk space. So that was a look at our vCenter performance monitoring. And so we reviewed the vCenter components and services, described the factors that influence vCenter server performance. And we talked about using vCenter appliance tools, such as vimtop and the VAMI, as well as other Linux commands like df, to monitor your vCenter server resource usage. And that concludes this module. So we'll see you again in the next one.